Okay, students, let us start, though it is slightly delayed because of the other meeting. We are going to look at the brainstem. The first one will be midbrain, and then we will slowly look at the other things. The functional anatomy and functional physiology we are going to look at. What is midbrain? Midbrain, also known as mesencephalon. Mesencephalon is the most superior of the three regions. What are the three regions? Midbrain, pons, and medulla. These are called the brain stem. Why stem? You have a flower, and the flower will have a stalk or a stem on which brain is like a flower, and this is a stalk or the stem. So there are three components. First component is the midbrain, and below that will be the pons, and below that will be the medulla. What does it do? It is a connection between the periphery, the spinal cord, and the center. It is a conduit between the forebrain and the pons and cerebellum below. Cerebellum is posterior, pons is below, optic cortex, ophthalmic cortex is also occipital cortex is also below the brainstem. So today we are going to look at the anatomy of that. So if you look at this figure, you can see that the midbrain, pons, and medulla, how they are oriented in relation to the cerebral hemispheres. You see the cerebral hemisphere there, and also you see the corpus callosum, you see the lateral ventricles, and below the floor of the lateral ventricle, you have the thalamus. Below the thalamus is the midbrain, and pons, and medulla. So between the two thalami on either side, there is the third ventricle. Okay, and above is the lateral ventricle. The third ventricle continues into the medulla and pons through a canal called the aqueduct. The cerebral aqueduct will connect the third ventricle to the fourth ventricle. That aqueduct passes through the midbrain. Okay, now let us see. Madam, you put off the phone. Yeah. So this is also known as the mesencephalon, a small essential region of the brainstem located between the forebrain, especially the thalamus and the hypothalamus above, and the hindbrain below. The hindbrain includes the pons and medulla. The forebrain and the hindbrain, in between is the midbrain. Forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. So in the forebrain, the lowest part of the forebrain is thalamus and hypothalamus. Below that is the midbrain. It is the narrowest part of the brainstem. After that, the brainstem becomes bulging like a bulb, no? That's why it is called bulbar palsy and all that you say. It bulges like a bulb. But in the midbrain region, it is narrower like a neck. So this is the pivotal link between the pons and the diencephalon, connecting the superior cerebellar peduncles of the cerebellum posteriorly. So behind the midbrain is the pons and the superior cerebellar peduncles connected to the cerebellum. Midbrain contains numerous white matter tracts and connect to the thalamus, internal capsule, pons, and with all the ascending white matter tracts from the periphery of the bodies. There are descending tracts, motor tracts, there are ascending tracts. All of them have to reach the thalamus. The gateway is the midbrain. Through the midbrain only, all these things. Its ventral region houses the descending white matter tracts and connecting the internal capsule and the cerebral peduncles. So what is the functionality of midbrain in general? It is a relay center for what? For sensory and motor pathways, facilitating the to and fro communication between the forebrain region and the hindbrain region and the spinal cord. Plays a vital role in integrating sensory information and coordinating all the motor activities. The midbrain is involved in processing also auditory information and visual information and generates motor commands from the eyes ahead and regulating wakefulness, modulating pain. It comprises of various structures with specific functions, including the dorsal region, which is called the tectum, and contains superior and inferior colliculi, as we are going to see in the diagram, for visual and auditory stimulus processing. These superior and inferior colliculi are respectively for visual and auditory. Superior for the visual and inferior colliculus for the auditory. And the tegmentum, which contains the nuclei, which involves the motor functions and pain perception, other sensory regions, and there is also red nucleus in the midbrain, and the substantia nigra is there. We know the substantia nigra is essential for the coordination of the movements. Red nucleus also is required. So many structures are there. So the superior colliculus, the inferior colliculus, which connect to the visual and auditory system, the red nucleus and the substantia nigra, and also the motor and sensory ascending and descending tracts that are there, and the connection with the cerebellum, which all make the midbrain something like Vijayawada Junction or Nagpur Junction. So many interlinks are there, up and down, laterally and all that. So let us see one by one. So this is the handwritten diagram. So which you can see the above the yellow color is the thalamus. Okay, there are two thalami. In between is the third ventricle, and the below that is the midbrain, and you can see a round circular structure which is called the aqueduct. And around the aqueduct there is periaqueductal gray matter. Below that there are colliculi are there, superior colliculus, and below that the inferior colliculus. And then you have got so many other structures. The green color there is the midbrain, and below that midbrain is the blue color one is the pons, and the two orange color on either side are the cerebellar peduncles, middle and inferior. The superior cerebellar peduncle is in the midbrain. Inferior and middle are connected to the pons, and below that is the purple colored one is the medulla. This is as though you are viewing from below, from the ventral aspect, from the anterior aspect, as though you are viewing me, my brain from your side. That's how it looks like. Okay. Now, this is the lateral projection of the same thing. You have got the pineal gland just above the midbrain, and the thalamus right above that, and the superior and inferior colliculi are the two projections like thing which you are seeing there, and they are connected to the thalamus through the inferior brachium and the superior brachium, and the cerebral peduncle is there, the oculomotor nerve and the trochlear nerve. These are also the nuclei which are there in the midbrain. So we'll see a little more detail about that in the next diagram. So the external anatomy of the midbrain is the smallest of the three regions of the brainstem, measuring about 2 centimeters in length. As it ascends, the midbrain travels through the opening in the tentorium cerebelli. So there's an opening in the tentorium cerebelli. What is tentorium cerebelli? The dura mater formed like a membrane below the hemispheres is the tentorium. There is an opening in that, and this midbrain connects to the upper parts of the brain through the tentorium cerebelli. It can be divided basically into two main parts. What are the two main parts of midbrain? Tectum and cerebral peduncle. Crus cerebri. These are also called the crus cerebri. Crus is the peduncle. Crus cerebri. Crus cerebri and the tectum. Then there is one region which is above the crus cerebri is called the tegmentum. Some people describe it as three parts: tectum, tegmentum, peduncles. In anatomically, it is tectum and peduncles only. The region of the midbrain above the tectum is called the tegmentum. Okay. So tectum, tegmentum, and pedunculi. Tectum is the superiormost or the dorsalmost part. Then the tegmentum, you can see in the next diagram, and then the pedunculi. Two are there on either side, the cerebral peduncles. The tectum forms the dorsal roof and contains the two collicular projections Colliculus is nothing but a bud-like thing, a projection. Two superior colliculi on either side, two inferior colliculi are below. So all together, these four are called corpora quadrigemina. Corpora is body, projection, corpora quadrigemina, two superior colliculi, two inferior colliculi. Superior colliculi are connected with the retina through the superior brachium, and the inferior colliculus is connected to the auditory system for auditory processing. So the tegmentum is, what is tegmentum? The part separating the tectum above the aqueduct is called the, you can see the picture there. You can see that in the picture, as you see, this is the aqueduct. Anything above that aqueduct is called the tectum. After the tectum, you have got the tegmentum, and below that are the cruri or the cerebral peduncles. So cerebral peduncles are the ventral most. This is the substantia nigra there, and then you have got the lemnisci, and these are all in the tegmentum, and you have got the tectum superior. Tectum houses the superior colliculus, and a little below will be the inferior colliculus. All the four colliculi together are called the corpora quadrigemina. Now summarize what did I say till now? You can tell now what is the summary of this one. Midbrain is the structure connecting the lower part of the brain, diencephalon, with the forebrain, and it is projected to the tentorium cerebelli. It is the most important gateway of up and down and lateral connections, a big junction. It is very narrow and 2 centimeters size. It has got a ventral aspect and a dorsal aspect. The ventral aspect has got the pedunculi. The dorsal aspect has got the tectum. The region between the tectum and the pedunculi is called the tegmentum. Laterally, the cerebral aqueduct is the channel which connects the third ventricle with the fourth ventricle. That channel is the dividing line for the tectum and tegmentum. So tectum is the most dorsal part, tegmentum is the middle part, and then the crus cerebri are the ventral part. The crus cerebri have got 4 important channels. What are they? Frontopontine, corticospinal, bulbospinal, and temporopontine. There are 4 projections are going. Frontopontine, descending from the cortex down into the spinal cord. Corticobulbar to the cranial nuclei, cranial nuclei, motor system, whatever is going. Then the temporal lobe connecting down is the temporopontine, and you also have the 4 things: temporopontine, corticospinal, corticobulbar, frontopontine. Frontopontine is the most medial. Corticospinal is the next one. Corticobulbar is the more lateral, and ultimately most lateral is the temporopontine, as you see in the ventral aspect. What separates the tegmentum and the cerebral peduncles? The substantia nigra. So this is the substantia nigra, which is separating this one from the tegmentum. In the tegmentum, we have got the trochlear nerve nucleus. Okay, the trochlear nerve nucleus is there, and this winds around and then exits like that. This is the inferior colliculus there. So the trochlear nerve nucleus, this is at the inferior colliculus level. Suppose you take a cut at the superior colliculus, the trochlear is replaced by the third nerve. So what is the clinical implication? Whenever midbrain is involved, the corticospinal tract and bulbospinal tracts are here, the motor part, and the nucleus also is here. This nucleus serves this side of the system, whereas this is the opposite side of the body. There will be a crossed hemiplegia. That means opposite side lesion if it is in the right side, left side of hemiplegia, right side third nerve, fourth nerve palsy. If you see a patient with third nerve or fourth nerve palsy, ipsilateral, contralateral hemiplegia, and that is a syndrome. Weber syndrome we call it as, and we will come to the syndromes later on. Let us understand this one. So what are now I'm going down, let us now cover the lowest part. What is the lowest part? Crus cerebri. What are the things in the crus cerebri? There are no nuclei here. It's a white matter tracts. What are the tracts? Motor tracts. Crus cerebri is mostly motor connection descending from the cerebral cortex down. What is the medial most? frontopontic. From the frontal cortex, which are instructions going down for emotion, cognition, and all those things. Frontopontic. Next will be corticospinal tract, which is the pyramidal tract projection. Then will be corticobulbar will be there, and finally temporopontine fibers. So what separates this from the tegmentum? The substantia nigra. What is substantia nigra? We already know. Substantia nigra has got pars compacta and pars reticularis. This is the one which is a dopamine-rich region, and this is the one controlling the coordinating the movements we have seen in Parkinson's projection. So the tegmentum also contains the lemnisci. The lemnisci are 4 in number. We will see in the subsequent discussion. And what else is there in the tegmentum region? We have got the 4th nerve nucleus and also the mesencephalic nucleus of the 5th nerve. 4th nerve and 5th nerve, both nuclei. You also got the medial longitudinal fasciculus also is there. Above that is the aqueduct, and above part is called the tect. The tectum houses the colliculi. Superior colliculus connects with the retina, and the inferior colliculus connects with the auditory system. And the 4 colliculae together are called the corpora quadrigemina. So as you see, a V-shaped is there in the ventral region. That V-shaped is peduncles are separated, whereas in the tegmentum region, there is no midline separation. Everything is one only. Tectum also is only one, whereas in the crus cerebri region, you see there is a separation. That region is perforated here. There are a lot of perforations here through which the perforator arteries will enter inside the midbrain and they will supply this one. You can see the crisscross like thing in the tegmentum. That crisscross is the cerebellar peduncle, superior cerebellar peduncle, decussation of the superior cerebellar peduncles. They cross from one side to another, and each side of the cerebellum is innervated by both the sides, and that crossing is occurring in the midbrain. That is the superior cerebellar peduncle crossing is occurring in the midbrain. Not only the superior cerebellar peduncle of one side caters to both the cerebellum. So both the cerebella are represented by in the crisscross there. So now what are the important structures in the midbrain? At the level of inferior colliculus cut. So it is usually described as midbrain cut is described in 2 levels. One inferior colliculus level, one at the superior colliculus level. So at the inferior colliculus level, I am repeating, from below towards the upper, that is ventral to the dorsal or anterior to the posterior, the lowest most part is mostly white matter. This white matter is called the crux cerebri or the cerebral peduncle. This cerebral peduncle contains 4 motor tracts: frontopontine, corticospinal, corticobulbar, temporopontine. This particular crux cerebri to V-shaped, and that central part is perforation through which the blood supply goes. And above the crux cerebri, we have the substantia nigra, pars reticularis, and pars compacta. Dopaminergic region, highly dopamine producing type of cells are there. Okay, then you have got in the midline, there is a crisscross of the superior cerebellar peduncle. So much so each side cerebellum is connected to both sides of the body. Okay. Then in the tegmentum itself, we have got the lemnisci. The lemnisci are 4 in number. We will see in the next discussion. And there is the aqueduct, cerebral aqueduct. Below that are the trochlear nuclei, and the 5th nerve, mesencephalic nucleus of the 5th nerve also is there in that particular region. Above that are the superior colliculi, inferior colliculi in this cut, inferior colliculi connect to the auditory projection, superior colliculi connected to the visual projection or the retina. So now we go a little up and have the next cut. So this is the cut at the superior colliculi. Before that, we will see what are the 4 lemniscus. There are medial lemniscus, spinal lemniscus, trigeminal lemniscus, and lateral lemniscus. What is medial lemniscus? It is the cunate nucleus and the gracilis nucleus, which project the second order neuron, is the medial lemniscus. That is a sensory of the vibration, fine touch, and then the proprioception is the medial lemniscus. Spinal lemniscus is spinothalamic tract projection, and that crosses now. Medial lemniscus has crossed now. Spinothalamic has crossed below itself. And both of them here are cross tracts. And then the trigeminal. This is the sensory information from the face. And finally, the lateral is the auditory projection. Where does they end? Medial lemniscus. And this is the origin is where are the arising? Gracilis and cuneatus nuclei. Because these are the second order neuron. And they go to the internal arcuate fibers and medulla and pons, and through the medulla and pons they send up to go to the ventroposterior posterior lateral nucleus of the thalamus. Whereas spinal cord, the spinal lemniscus is the pain and temperature projection, and it is from the spinal cord. Anterior lateral brainstem it will go, and final termination will be VPL, that is the ventroposterior lateral nucleus of the thalamus. Whereas the trigeminal ones are on the face, they are going to the ventroposterior medial VPM nucleus of the face. And finally, the lateral one, they go to the inferior colliculus. So the final termination will be inferior colliculus, because these are the auditory things. The lateral ones are the auditory conduction. These four are called the lemnisci. Where are the lemnisci? You can see here. The lemnisci are here. The blue color one here is the lemniscus. This has got four parts. I have told you the medial lemniscus, the spinal lemniscus, and the auditory, the trigeminal lemniscus, and the lateral lemniscus. Okay. So two transverse sections of the midbrain are being discussed. Level of the inferior colliculus, level of the superior colliculus, the anterior lateral surface of the midbrain houses a paired crus cerebri. We have already told. Four fiber tracts are there. These are white matter tracts descending from above, connecting the brain to the lower parts of the body. Frontopontine, located most medially, corticospinal, next to that, corticobulbar, next to that, and finally, most laterally, temporopontine fibers. And posteriorly is the substantia nigra, which we already have seen. The tegmentum is even above that substantia nigra. It is continuing. The important thing is the cerebral peduncles do not continue below to the pons, whereas the tegmentum continues to the pons also. The tegmentum is something which is there continuously with the pons also, whereas cerebral peduncles are restricted only to the midbrain. So the periaqueduct is there, which is the conduit between the third ventricle and the fourth ventricle. The periaqueductal gray matter is there, and then mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal nerve is also there. The trochlear nerve is also there. There is also a medial longitudinal fasciculus also can be seen. You can see here in the diagram here, this is the medial longitudinal fasciculus, the purple color part. Okay, now. So this is a cut at the level of the superior colliculus. So in the superior colliculus, instead of the trochlear nerve, it is replaced by the oculomotor nerve. Instead of the cerebellar peduncle decussation, we have got the big red nucleus. And this red nucleus, cerebrospinal crossings also, decussations also. The decussation of the cerebrospinal tract, the red nucleus. The red nucleus is very important for motor coordination. The lemnisci continue, the four lemnisci, the medial lemniscus, the spinal lemniscus, the trigeminal lemniscus, and the lateral lemniscus, all of them continue. And finally, the other structures remain the same. The peduncles are same, the lemnisci are same. Superior colliculus is connected to the retina for the visual coordination, and this is the periaqueductal gray matter, and we have got the mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal nerve, and we have got the medial longitudinal fasciculus here, and these two are the oculomotor nerve, which is the third cranial nerve. It has got a beautiful function. Oculomotor nerve, it supplies, what are the recti it supplies? Oculomotor. What are the muscles supplied by oculomotor? Three
muscles. Three LR6 lateral rectus by 6 nerve. SO4 by 4th nerve. Restall by.
Yes, lateral rectus is supplied by the 6th nerve. All remaining muscles are supplied by the third nerve, and also the trigeminal nerve, the fourth nerve is for the anterior oblique muscle. not recti muscle, oblique muscle. And also the third nerve is important for the pupil. So pupil and pupillary contraction dilatation is mediated by the third. So clinically, what is the importance of midbrain? When we have the midbrain structure affected by ischemia or tumor, we get the corticospinal tracts, fascia, and the corticobulbar tracts, and then the frontopontine tracts, all are affected. Along with that, these are contralateral. Ipsilaterally, you have the third and fourth nerve involved. If the red nucleus is involved, a lot of coordination problems also will occur. So that's very important for us. So more or less, we have discussed the lemnisci and the connection at this level. Now, let me tell you a little more details about this one. You have seen the diagram. Now, the midbrain anatomically is divided into three parts. One is the tectum, the other is the tegmentum, the third one is the basis pedunculi or the cerebral pedunculus. Tectum forms the dorsalmost region, roof of the midbrain, and the superior and inferior colliculi are there in the tectum. Collectively, these are known as the corpora. Okay, so we have seen the cut at the superior colliculi. Superior colliculi are involved in the visual processing, inferior colliculi in the auditory processing. Okay, so what is that aqueduct? Small connection is there, that is called cerebral aqueduct, and that cerebral aqueduct is the connection between the third ventricle and the fourth ventricle. Why it is important? It is narrow, only 3 to 4 millimeters. In case it is obstructed by any tumor, it will be secondary hydrocephalus. That is why the cerebral aqueduct is very important. Ventral to the tegmentum contains several nuclei, and including the red nucleus, periquadrigeminal gray matter, and then the cranial nerve nuclei of the third and fourth nerves, and the dopaminergic neurons of the substantia nigra in the ventral tegmental region. And they also have gamma aminobutyric acid secreting neurons and glutaminergic neurons. So three types of neurotransmitters. One is the dopaminergic, GABAergic, and glutaminergic. What is GABA? GABA is inhibitory. Glutamate is stimulatory. Dopamine is both inhibitory and stimulatory, depending on which receptor it stimulates. There are 5 receptors for the DOPA. 1 and 3 form one group. 2, 4, and 5 are the inhibitory neurons. So remember, suffice to know 1 and 2. 1 is stimulatory, 2 is inhibitory. This we have already seen in the Parkinson's. Now, what is the functional role of midbrain? This is the structure part. I have already shown you the structure. So at the level of the superior colliculus and the cranial nuclei, we will see later. Midbrain contains the superior colliculus, which mediates the visual reflexes, such as turning the head in response to visual stimuli. Supposing, let us say, there is an interesting thing and somebody has called. You want to turn the eyes and head towards it. That connection is mediated by the superior colliculus. That is, superior colliculus is connected to the retina. Whenever the retina images something on this side, the head and eyes turn to that side. So that is the role of the superior colliculus. So what will happen in a patient who has got an effect of the superior colliculus? This coordination function of head and eyes turning will be lost. And also spatial orientation of the head through the inferior colliculus. Why? It is connected to the vestibule. It's okay. The vestibule is about the spatial connection. That means where is my head, what position is the head, how much I have to turn, how much I have to bend. All that is decided by the vestibule. Not only visual, the vestibular impulses, both of them together coordinate the head and eye movement and position of the head. Any disease affecting the superior colliculus affects the head and eye coordination with the eye, and any disease affecting the inferior colliculus produces vestibular disturbance, wherein the head orientation in respect to the space will be lost. So, this is the most important part of midbrain are superior colliculi and inferior colliculi. Superior colliculi for the visual, inferior colliculi for the auditory mapping and guiding and orienting the behavior toward sound, touch, images. Suppose somebody touches here, suddenly it's touch, some visual flash. some sound for all the impulses are utilized and then coordinated. Okay. Then it also has got a very wonderful region called the substantia nigra. We know the importance of substantia nigra, nigrostriatal pathway. The substantia nigra projects to the striatum. What is striatum? Cardiac nucleus putamen is the striatum. So it gets projected to the striatum, and any degeneration of substantia nigra, particularly in the pars compacta, reduces the dopamine. Reduction in the dopamine produces Parkinsonism. We have seen that. And also, very important nucleus is the red nucleus is there in the midbrain. You can see in the diagram here. That is a crucial role for motor coordination and control, with its axons projecting to the thalamus and substantia nigra, reticular formation, and spinal cord. For example, red nucleus is there. It projects about to the thalamus, and also it projects to the substantia nigra. It projects to the reticular formation in the medulla and the pons, and it also projects to the spinal cord via rubrospinal tract. Means what? The midbrain is involved in eye movement control through the various cranial nerves and also through various spinal nerves, the position of the body in respect to the ground, in respect to the surroundings through the rubrospinal tract. So already very important structures we have seen: superior colliculus, inferior colliculus, and then you have got the red nucleus, you have got the substantia nigra. What is the function of superior colliculus? Visual coordination. Inferior colliculus, vestibular coordination. And then red nucleus, spinal coordination, and all the muscles and the coordination of the posture. And then the substantia nigra, motor coordination. And the antagonist to relax, agonist to contract properly, that is the substantia nigra. So 4 important functions: superior colliculus, inferior colliculus, red nucleus, substantia nigra. In addition, there is a third nerve nucleus, there is a fourth nerve nucleus, which are eye movements. They are connected to the eye, because any movement there is to be coordinated. That's why these 2 nuclei mainly control the eyes. So they are located there in the midbrain itself. And there is also the 5th nerve nucleus. Why 5th nerve is required? I require to use a sensation from face has to come and inform where I have been touched. All the 5th nerve nucleus also is there. Okay, 5th sensory nucleus is there. Likewise, you have got the most important part is you have also got the medial longitudinal fasciculus also is there, which is important for the face motor activity. Okay, and you have got the lemnisci are there. These lemnisci are 4 lemnisci are there. One is medial lemniscus, proprioceptive sensation, spinal lemniscus, the pain and touch sensation, pain and temperature sensation, then the trigeminal lemniscus, face-related sensory information, the lateral lemniscus related to the auditory. Remember, at the level of superior colliculus, all the 4 parts are there in the lemniscus. When you come below, the lateral lemniscus terminates. The lateral lemniscus won't be there in the superior colliculus. That is one difference there. What is the other difference? In the superior colliculus level, we have got the red nucleus. In the inferior colliculus level, we have got the decussation of the cerebellar peduncles. In the superior colliculus level, we have got the 3rd nerve. In the inferior colliculus level, we have got the 4th nerve. Superior colliculus level, connection to the eye. Inferior colliculus level, connection to the vestibule. So this is very important. The cerebral peduncles are same in both the areas. Okay. So there are other functions like, coordination functions like learning, anxiety, defensive responses. All these are coordinated by the periaqueductal gray matter. The periaqueductal gray matter is a cluster of nuclei. They control the feelings of anxiety, the feeling of fear, and rapid defensive responses. These are all in the periaqueductal gray matter. So the reticular formation within the midbrain regulates the muscle reflexes, autonomic functions, pain sensations, behavioral arousal, and ascending reticular activating system, ARAS. This is very important, sharpening the attentiveness of the cortex. ARS is essential for the person being conscious. A ascending reticular activating system is the one which keeps a person conscious. If the ARS is suppressed, either due to drug or intoxication or disease, then the loss of consciousness will occur. So, midbrain participates in integrating autonomic and also endocrine behaviors through its connections with the hypothalamus also. Adaptive responses to the homeostasis are mediated by the midbrain. Its positions are as crucial in the neural circuit and enable sensory motor integration, reflexive behaviors, modulation of the voluntary movement. So now you summarize. What are the functions of the midbrain? Structure we have seen. What are the functions? Starting from the top, let's go from the superior colliculus, inferior colliculus, auditory. Then fifth nerve nucleus, face sensations. Okay, third and fourth nerves, recti muscles. Then red nucleus, motor coordination of the whole body. Substantia nigra, modulation of the movement, and then through the basal ganglia, all that. And the lemnisci, which are sensory projections. These are ongoing tracts to the thalamus. So if anything happens to the lemnisci, sensations will be lost on the contralateral side. What sort of sensations? Medial lemniscus for the proprioception, trigeminal lemniscus for the face sensation. After the medial lemniscus, you have got the spinal lemniscus for the pain and temperature. Then you have got the trigeminal lemniscus, and finally the lateral lemniscus. So, and also this is connected to the cerebellum also for the coordination, and everything is talking in unison. The eyes, the vestibule, the spinal inputs, the proprioception, the face sensations, the red nucleus. It has also got the areas, which keeps one conscious. So, the functions of midbrain not only are motor and sensory, they are behavioral and then endocrinal also by its connection to the hypothalamus. Endocrinal function modification and behavioral modification, learning abilities and anxiety, all these are controlled by the midbrain. Such a very, very vital and important structure. Now this diagram shows you where are the various nuclei. So the uppermost part there is the midbrain, the middle part bulges the pons, and below the pyramidal type is the medulla. Okay, so we will discuss them later, but you can see we have got a very important nucleus. The first one, you have got the oculomotor nucleus, you have got the trochlear nucleus, below that at the level of superior colliculus, oculomotor, at the level of inferior colliculus is the trochlear nerve nucleus. You have also got the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. What is the Edinger-Westphal nucleus? Mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal. The mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal nerve is also called the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. So, mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal nerve is there, Edinger-Westphal nucleus is there, the motor nucleus of the trigeminal nerves are below. There are several other structures. The mesencephalic nucleus is very large one. It is stretching like that. It is starting from the midbrain and going down up to the pons. And this Edinger-Westphal nucleus is a special nucleus there. The principal sensory nucleus of the trigeminal nerve is in the pons. So as far as midbrain is concerned, any midbrain lesion clinically can produce what are all the clinical symptoms that can occur when there is a traumatic or ischemic or space occupying lesion of the midbrain. What are the things it can produce? It can endanger the third and fourth nerve nuclei. Okay, so recti muscle paralysis can occur, pupillary changes will be there, and the cerebral peduncles are having the corticospinal tracts, and then so much so the hemiplegia on the opposite side, and then behavioral problems, endocrine problems, and also coordination problems because of the red nucleus and the rubrospinal connections. So these are all the various clinical behaviors that can, clinical effects that can occur when the midbrain is affected. So we looked at the midbrain, the structure, the function, and the importance of the function. there is important thing that you know is the dopaminergic system, GABAergic system, and glutaminergic system is there. Glutamine is stimulatory, GABA is inhibitory, dopamine is both stimulatory and inhibitory. They are nigrostriatal, mesolimbic, mesocortical pathways. The nigrostriatal pathway from the substance nigra projects to the striatum. Striatum means caudate nucleus plus putamen, playing a central role in motor coordination and habit learning. Mesolimbic pathways arising from the ventral tegmental area that target the limbic structures such as the nucleus accumbens and amygdala. What are they involved for? So, limbic system is for what? Memory, learning, behavior, motivation, all these things are through the amygdala, nucleus accumbens, and limbic structures. So, the limbic pathway also is there in the midbrain. The mesocortical pathway projects from the ventral tegmental region to the prefrontal cortex and contribute to the cognition, including attention, initiation, motivation, planning, decision making, working memory, recall. All these things are a mesocortical pathways. Dysregulation of these pathways is implicated in several psychiatric disorders. So much so, midbrain lesions can produce several psychosomatic manifestations. Psychiatric manifestations as well as somatic manifestations. What are the psychiatric manifestations? They could be loss of attention, loss of initiation, motivation, lack of planning, lack of decision making, loss of memory, and dysregulation of these pathways is implicated particularly in schizophrenia and other depressive disorders. These are very much implicated. The psychiatric disorders and Parkinsonism can be two important problems that can occur. So we also know the GABAergic and there is a glutamate. When you remember, I have already told you earlier that the tyrosine is hydroxylated to dopa, and dopa decarboxylase produces dopamine and all that. And there are 5 types of dopa receptors. I have talked about only 2 types. There are 5 types, type 1 to type 5. 1 is D1 means D1 and D5. D2 means remaining D2, D3, D4. D1 and D5 are stimulatory or excitatory. D2 and D3, D4 are called D2-like. These are inhibitory. Each coupled with a distinct G protein. What is that G protein? GI protein, inhibitory protein, GS protein, stimulatory protein. A signaling cascade that modulates the neuronal excitability and plasticity. Gamma aminobutyric acid is there. Gamma aminobutyric acid, it is GABAergic neuron provides inhibitory input, but glutaminergic neurons produce excitatory input. Glutamate activates via NMDA. What is NMDA? N-methyl D-aspartate alpha amino 3-hydroxy NMDA, D-aspartate. N-methyl D-aspartate is NMDA. There is another thing called the AMPA, amino hydroxyl isoxazopropionic acid. That is APMA. These are 2 receptors for the glutamate. Glutamate can act through 2 receptors, NMDA receptors and AMPA receptors. These are the midbrain. Other neurotransmitters are also there, like serotonergic neurons are there, cholinergic neurons are there. Cholinergic neurons are involved in the arousal, attention, motivation, reward, learning, memory, plasticity, and may induce activity of the midbrain in the dopaminergic regions. Serotoninergic neurons are concentrated in the median rapid nuclei and project widely and influence mood, cognition, arousal. There are also histaminergic neurons. So what are all the neurotransmitters in the midbrain? Basically dopamine, 1 and 2 receptors, 1-like and 2-like. 1 and 5 are 1-like, 2, 3, 4 are the 2-like. And you also have the GABAergic and then the glutaminergic. In addition, you have got the cholinergic, you have serotoninergic and histaminergic neurons also All these are there in the midbrain. So midbrain has got a very important role to play in psychiatric disorders also. Now, what is the correct target now? We have got today, what is the capacity of the MRI here in our center? And maybe 2 Tesla, you don't know. So usually 2 Tesla only these people will be having. Now we have got 7 Tesla. 7 Tesla MRI is available. That is, it's 5 times, 7 times more powerful and very fast also. So we don't have to lay down for 40 minutes or 30 minutes like. In our MRI, at least minimum 40 minutes you have to lay down for brain scan. Whereas in the 7 Tesla, hardly 3-4 minutes. And the image quality is so nice that you can pinpoint every single lesion in the midbrain or any of the brainstem very carefully. Okay, so that is the advantage of that. And these are very much studied in the behavioral disorders. Optogenetic, chromogenetic technologies have come. Not only the 3 Tesla, we have the optogenetic and chromogenetic technologies to manipulate the midbrain image. With that, the study of the midbrain is becoming much more effective. Also, we have got the stem cells. Research is also going on. These stem cells, organoid models have developed to generate midbrain dopaminergic neurons. If the dopamine is deficient, we infuse stem cells to produce dopaminergic neuron population, which are pluripotent stem cells, which are used in the midbrain. And these are the newer developments. The newer developments in terms of midbrain are the 77 Tesla MRI, optogenic and chromogenic technologies to enhance the image experience, and the stem cell, this one. All this document also, I will share with you all the details related to midbrain. A text document is there. In addition, I need to say a few words about the blood supply of this. So the blood supply of the midbrain, see there, blood supply is 5 blood vessels are supplying the midbrain. The color coded, you see, the orange color area is posterior cerebral artery, okay, which is the terminal bifurcation of the basilar system. Basilar system bifurcates into 2 posterior cerebral arteries. And then interdependent branches of the basilar artery, that is the medial part of the midbrain is supplied, that yellow color, and superior cerebral artery is there. And then the peduncular branches of the posterior cerebral artery is there, and posterior choroidal artery, a small portion of the ventral part of the crux cerebri is supplied by the posterior choroidal artery. So there are perforating arteries are there, and these are the 5 types. So this again, this is about the blood supply. Remember the syndromes of posterior cerebral artery can involve the midbrain. Likewise, superior cerebral artery obstruction can produce midbrain lesions, and peduncular branches of the posterior cerebral artery, they can also produce midbrain lesion. These are the ischemic lesions of the midbrain. These are also possible. And most importantly, the venous system also very simple. So everything ultimately drains into the great cerebral vein of Galen. So from there it comes into the superior vena cava finally, and cerebral sinus thrombosis. Whenever it occurs, cerebral venous sinus thrombosis. So thrombosis of the cerebral veins can indirectly affect the midbrain also. So these are the various important aspects of midbrain. Next time we will see the pons and medulla probably together. With that, the brainstem will be over. And finally, one class we will see the clinical syndromes associated with midbrain disease. So can we summarize now in 2-3 minutes about midbrain?
No.
It's okay. 5 minutes we will take and summarize take-home points of this lecture. Midbrain is the connection between the forebrain and the hindbrain. It is 2 centimeters narrowest part of the brainstem. And below the midbrain is the pons. Above the midbrain is the thalamus and the hypothalamus. So here you can we'll discuss this. Most important thing is midbrain is usually viewed in two cuts, one at the level of inferior colliculus, one at the level of superior. So the ventral part has got the crux cerebrae. Crux cerebrae are cerebral peduncles. These cerebral peduncles are there. These cerebral peduncles, you can see here, the frontopontine, corticospinal, corticobulbar, temporopontine fibers. These are all white matter. Above that is the substantia nigra, and here is the cerebellar peduncle decussation. These are the lemnisci. So the lemnisci are 4 in number: medial, spinal, trigeminal, and finally the lateral. These are the lemnisci, and then you have got the most important middle longitudinal fasciculus. Then you have got the trochlear nuclei at the level of inferior colliculus, cerebral aqueduct, periaqueductal gray matter, mesencephalic nucleus of the fifth nerve, and then the trochlear nerve area emerging out at the level of inferior colliculus. And the cerebral aqueductal gray matter is there, and cerebral aqueduct is important connection. And hydrocephalus secondary hydrocephalus can occur. This is the tectum and this is the tegmentum part of it. Remember, the peduncles are left and right separated, whereas the rest of the midbrain is like one structure. There is no midline division there in that. And then the most important, if you go to the superior colliculus level, you have got the red nucleus replacing the cerebellar peduncles, rubrospinal tracts. The third nerve is there, lemnisci continuing, these peduncles are continuing. Superior colliculus is important for the retinal projection and inferior colliculus for the vestibular projection. So, midbrain has got several functions in addition to the motor functions, coordination functions, arousal functions, consciousness function, and also you have got the hypothalamic connections produce the endocrine functions. So many connections, interconnections are that is the main channel through which everything goes. And importantly, there are 3 nuclei there: third nerve, fourth nerve, and the mesencephalic nucleus of the fifth nerve. These are the more important nuclei. In the blood supply, 5 blood arteries: posterior cerebral, superior cerebellar, and then peduncular arteries, interpeduncular branches of basilar, and then the posterior choroidal artery. Which region they supply? It is there in the color-coded way. So with this we conclude, and syndromes of the midbrain clinical effects we will see at a later lecture. Stop here and then probably.